Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. This episode is for UFC Fight Night Moreno V Erceg. I'm finally on track. I've caught up with every single card. This episode's late for sure. By the time it'll be posted, it'll be late. But I'm finally caught up, and I feel so happy. This card was 20,000 times better than the UFC London card. Okay, let's start off with the top. That way we don't procrastinate or whatever. Mederos versus Hubbard. This was a fun fight, but a very weird and wonky fight. This ended up being a split decision that honestly could have gone either way. I'm not going to be mad at you. It really could have gone either way. I had this 29-28 to Mederos. In the first round, Mederos outstruck Hubbard by about 9 strikes. If you've watched Mederos fights, it's basically Mederos fights really hard in round number 1. And then round 2 and 3, he kind of gets I don't want to say to rounds 2 and 3. Round 2, he gets tired, and round 3 is kind of like we don't know what's going to happen. Round 2, Hubbard gets a takedown with a little bit of ground and pound, and he has a submission attempt for about 3+ minutes. He has Mederos' back for that 3 minutes, really. That's kind of the takedown there. And then you go to the third round where Hubbard has a takedown with very little ground and pound for about 2 minutes, right? He gets the takedown at the start of the round. Very, very little ground and pound. Little to no ground and pound. And this is where it gets a little wonky. Mederos gets up from the takedown. There's not much, if we're just going to be honest here, there's not much that happens on the feet. The only significant thing that happens in this third round is that as Hubbard is getting up, or excuse me, let me not say as Hubbard is getting up, Mederos kind of reverses position, gets up, lands an elbow on the side of Hubbard's head, and Hubbard starts to bleed. That's the most significant strike. Hubbard didn't really do anything when he was on top of Mederos. If you want, you can. It's a close round. You can argue it to either person. It just so happened that I leaned towards the striking, and so I gave it to Mederos. But really, if you gave it to Hubbard, it's not actually a bad scorecard. You go to the judges' scorecards. And Mike Bell saw the amount of their scorecards reflect mine, 29-28 to Mederos, the first and the third round. And then Miguel Jimenez, he gives the last 2 rounds to Hubbard. Again, the last round's close. Can't argue with it. Next honorable mention, Garcia versus Pichel. I think it's Pichel. I want to say it's either Pichel or Pichel. I can't remember. I just finished the card maybe like an hour ago, and I'm winded. I had this 29-28. Guys, this is 29-28 to Garcia. 29-28 to Garcia. First round for Garcia, last round for Garcia, second round for Pichel. When I heard 30-27, I was like, oh, the judges, it's home cooking. We got home cooking. We got some bullshit. We're going to get bullshit scorecards. And it just so happened that we didn't get that many bad scorecards. But when I saw that there was a 30-27, I almost wanted to break my computer screen. Let's go to the first round. First round, Garcia had a takedown, and he outstruck Pichel by about 3 strikes. He was outstriking him barely on the feet, and then he gets the takedown at the end. It's Garcia's round. You go to the second round, Pichel outstruck Garcia by about 6-7 strikes, and then you go to the third round where it's close on strikes, and then Garcia gets a takedown that's 100% his round. I don't know how 2 judges saw the second round for Garcia. I don't know what the fuck they were watching. You go to the scorecards. Saul Diwan is the only one with the correct scorecard. His scorecard reflects mine. It's 29-28 to Garcia, first in the third round. And then Dave Torelli and Guillermo Bravo, their scorecards are 30-27 to Garcia. Honorable mention. That's ridiculous. We go to the next honorable mention. We go to the next one, and it's, let's see if I can find it. It's the fun fight of Rodriguez versus Borjas. This was great. This fight was awesome for one reason. Borjas looked amazing. his striking was on point, crispy, as Bisping would say, and he just looked really good. And then we got to the scorecards. Again, I have a 30-27. First round, Rodriguez had a takedown to close the round, but he was getting outstruck on the feet. He got outstruck by about 7 strikes. Oh, and the important part is he got dropped twice. Now, Rodriguez got up pretty quickly, but he got dropped twice in this round. This round belongs to Borjas. You go to the second round. Borjas outstrikes Rodriguez. This is the closest round, but it's not close. It's the closest round, but it's not a close round. He outstrikes Rodriguez by 2 strikes, but Borjas has the better strikes. He's hitting Rodriguez with heavy strikes every time he lands. Rodriguez is obviously attacking back, but they're not as impactful as Borjas. You go to the third round. If I can find it. Borjas outstrikes Rodriguez by about 7 strikes. That's where you get the 30-27. You go to the judges' scorecards. Saw the amount of Eric Colon. Their scorecards reflect mine. It's 30-27 to Borjas. Vladimir Puga, he gives a second round to Rodriguez. Honorable mention. I know it's close on strikes, but it's obvious who was winning that round. So honorable mention there to Puga, excuse me. Next honorable mention, Rosas Jr. versus Morales. I don't want to call this one home cooking, but I want to call it, I don't know what to call it. I want to call it something. I want to call it, if it weren't in Mexico, it wouldn't be scored this way. That's what I'm going to call it. And funny thing is, I scored it the same way they did too, but here's my problem. Rosas Jr. versus Morales. I had this 29-28. First 2 rounds for Rosas Jr., last round for Morales. It's last round for Morales, okay? If you look at the descriptions here, Rosas had a takedown with very little ground and pound for 3+ minutes, and this was the beginning of how he would fight. Very little ground and pound for 3+ minutes. Morales had a reversal and a submission attempt that was in for a little bit, and then Rosas got out of. You go to the second round. Morales outstrikes Rodriguez on the feet by 5 strikes, but it's not enough. And this is what's so tricky. I put a close marker on the second round. He's outstriking Rosas on the feet. Rosas gets a takedown with 2 minutes and proceeds to not only not land a single strike, there's no ground and pound, there's not even a submission attempt. He's just moving position. He's just keeping him there. And what's sad is, even as I was watching it, I was like, he's not doing anything. I have to score it for Rosas because he kept him there for the majority of that round, despite getting out. Now, if Martinez had outstruck him by a much heavier margin, then I probably would have given it to Morales, but he didn't. He only outstruck him by 5 strikes, so there you have it. I think you can argue that second round for Morales, but no one did, obviously. You go to that last round. Rodriguez has a reversal. Rosas, has a reversal. No ground and pound, nothing. Morales wins this round based off of just, he's active. He has 2 deep submission attempts, and that's how he wins that round. 29-28 to Rosas Jr. You go to all 3 judges' scorecards. Chris Lee, saw the amount of Eric Colon. Their scorecards reflect mine. There you have it on that. Then you go to the last fight of the night, and this is probably the most controversial one. I just want to start off with this. Moreno versus Erceg. I had this 48-47 for Moreno. Close marker on the second round. I finished the fight, and then I looked online, and I saw some sheets that were showing significant strikes. I'm not saying they're correct in the favor of Erceg, but I want to say they're very close. Because here's what... We're going to go round by round, but in the moment, this fight was a lot closer. How do I say this? Watching it live, it was close. The way the commentary were wiggling about this fight, it was very close. But if you listen to the commentary, it almost sounded like they couldn't pick a narrative. 1 minute it was close, the next minute it's 3-1 Moreno. Insane. This fight is so close that you can argue this fight for Erceg. In a sense, this kind of reminds me of, in terms of strikes, not the type of strikes that were being thrown. But actually, a little bit, it could be. It kind of reminds me of like Kattar versus Emmett, where it's a very close fight, and you can't really argue with who. Not argue. You can't really be mad at who won or who lost. First 2 rounds I gave for Moreno. Third and fourth round I gave to Erceg. Last round I gave to. Let me say that again. It's 2 a.m. right now. Give me a second. First 2 rounds I gave to Moreno. The next 2 rounds I gave to Erceg. Last round I gave to Moreno. Let's start off with the first round. First round, Moreno outstrikes Erceg by about 2 strikes. He outstrikes him by 2 strikes, but it's obvious that he's landing the heavier strikes, the more impactful strikes. Very close on strikes in the first round, but the power meter goes to Moreno. You go to the second round, it's close on strikes. Moreno, in my opinion, edges him out, but it's close on strikes. You can argue 1-1 here if you wanted to. It's very close on strikes. Erceg starts to pick it up. If you listen to commentary, they don't know what the fuck they're just going back and forth with. It's a much better round for Erceg, but this is happening when in actuality, it's very funny. They're talking about missed shots and what was going on. Erceg, for a lot of this fight, is effectively jabbing the fuck out of Moreno while Moreno is throwing right hands. And while Moreno is also throwing jabs that land, they're both missing frequently, but it's not like misses. There's another word for it. They're both blocking a lot of each other's shots, which is very unique. So I guess the judges were looking at activity, but if that were the case, Erceg was probably the most active in terms of strikes than Moreno. I think the only difference is Moreno was landing on Erceg better than Erceg was on Moreno. You go to the third round. This is where the nonsense starts. The commentary is saying, the commentary is making it seem as though at first they're making it seem like this is Moreno won this round, when in actuality he doesn't. This round and the fourth round are clearly Erceg's rounds. I don't know how they were just. And when I say the commentary, I want to say DC specifically is really trying to make it known that because Erceg is getting pushed back, he's losing, or the optics aren't in his favor. When I'm watching it, I'm going, the optics are absolutely in his. The optics are fine. He's moving back, yes, but he's outstriking in these 2 rounds. He's outstriking Moreno clear. I bring this up all the time, but it reminds me of hack press versus Hooker. It's a carbon copy of that, where Hooker's going backwards, but he's outstriking this time by a much heavier margin. He's outstriking hack press clearly. In these 2 rounds, 3 and 4, Erceg is outstriking Moreno by a lot. He's outstriking him pretty well. Yet, if you listen to the commentary, it almost makes it seem as though, oh, this is close. Round 3 and round 4 are not close by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, that's what happens in 3. In 4, Erceg outstrikes Moreno by about 7+ strikes. Moreno has a takedown to close the round, but it's not enough. It really isn't enough. That takedown means absolutely nothing. DC is proclaiming by the end of round 4 that Moreno's up 3-1. I don't know. Now, in the end, he was right because of the judges' scorecards, but he's wrong. That's just the wrong way to score this fight. Realistically, after round 4, it's either 2-2 or it's 3-1 Erceg. Those are the only two combinations you can come up with. There is no 3-1 Moreno. There shouldn't be. There really shouldn't be. After round 4, it should be 3-1 Erceg or 2-2 Moreno, We go to the fourth round. We go to the fifth round where it's close on strikes. They're neck and neck on strikes. Before it gets to the ground, Moreno's up on strikes by about 2-3 strikes. He's up on strikes. It gets to the ground where it reminds me, it brings me back to what's his name? I can't remember his name. It brings me back to I'm trying to remember his name. It brings me back to Erceg versus Pantoja, where I think he needs the fifth round. I'd have to check my score sheet. I think he needs the fifth round, and Erceg somehow ends up on the ground, and he just doesn't get up from there, and it's a loss for Erceg. It kind of reminds me of that, where Erceg is a little bit down on strikes in this fifth round, and he just, I forget if he falls or if Moreno kind of pushes him down there. Regardless, he ends up down there for the remaining 30-something seconds of the fifth round and proceeds to lose. So there you have it on that. You go to the judges' scorecards, and when I heard 49-46, I wanted to break every living bone in my body. These score sheets don't make any sense. Chris Lee saw the amount of Mike Bell. Let's just start off. Honorable mention all three. It's a ridiculous scorecard. They give the first 2 rounds to Moreno. Okay, that's fine. I still think 2 is a toss-up round. They give 3 to Erceg. They give 4 to Moreno. They give 4 to Moreno because of the takedown. They think the strikes are so close on the feet that the takedown was the defining factor, when in fact it wasn't. Erceg is outstriking Moreno clear. The takedown is irrelevant. This wasn't as though this were round 2 or hell, even round 5. Like, that thinking makes sense for round 5, but it doesn't make sense for round 4. Yet they scored it that way. 49-46 on all 3 judges' scorecards. That's how you end the night. And regardless of that, it was a pretty fun fight. It was a fun fight. Most of the fights on here were fun. I don't think there was a single boring fight on this card except for me. No, all the fights were pretty interesting and pretty good. That's all I got. I'll be back next week. Or this week. Or next week. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.